Okay, thank you, Dr. Rajkumar, and good morning, everybody. As to all participants online and who are present physically. As introduced, I'm Srinivasa Kumar. I'm director of the Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. I'll actually come back to one slide later in my presentation what INCOIS and Minister of Earth Sciences does, and then how it is relevant to Ocean Decade as well as to the GHRSST community. And I make this presentation on my own behalf and also on behalf of Dr. Vladimir Ryabinin, who is actually the Executive Secretary of the IOC UNESCO, who has actually provided inputs for this presentation. We jointly made, for one of the recent G20 events, so I use some of this information from there. So I'll be talking a bit about UN Decade before I really jump into what India is doing as part of the UN Decade. Because some of you must be very well, working as part of the UN Decade, as part of your agencies and as individual scientists. But then there might be others in the audience, like students and other researchers who are not, really well versed with the UN Decade. So to this audience, I'll not really try to, venture into telling why the ocean is important. We all understand the oceans are very important. And then there are several international frameworks, some of which are listed here, which actually, enable collaboration of a wide range of stakeholders in the ocean agenda. You see, the SDGs, the SDG 14, which is life underwater. Then you have several things like the SOLAS, the MARPOL, and so on and so forth. These are all very useful frameworks. And then we have several useful goals that are well set. Each of these frameworks come with a set of goals and targets and then action plans to achieve, sustainable oceans. So the next thing actually that I'm showing here is also, thanks to work going on across countries, across scientific groups, across all these international frameworks, there is certain knowledge that has been generated as far as the oceans are concerned. And then there are several assessment reports that you see here. So we more or less know what are the problems that are being actually faced by these oceans. Like, for example, you have the global, the marine assessment reports. There are two versions. Then you have global ocean science report. Then we have the state of ocean report and so on and so forth. So broadly, we know what are the problems. The oceans are warming. We know the problems with acidification, deoxygenation. We know there are problems with pollution. We know we need to make more observations, both in situ and satellite. We need to develop science, and then to be able to, have some of those solutions to the problems that the oceans are facing. So now that knowledge that we have, how do we, translate them into actions? So SDG 14, for example, if you see, there is actually, we know that, as the World Ocean Assessment 1 in 2016, that has sounded the alarms actually, saying that we are missing the time to start managing the oceans. Actually, we need to start managing the oceans right now. And then we need to actually, but the momentum of the work in the ocean has been historically low. If you look at the, spending on the SDG 14 indicators, actually this is information from the SDG Financing Lab. If you see how much of money is being spent on SDG 14, it is abysmally low. I mean, it's, believe me, you can't read those numbers, but believe me, it's less than 2% of all the money that is spent on all the indicators in the SDGs. The ocean actually receives very less importance. And then, so that's actually really bad. So we need to actually do something together to actually, change the situation. So oceans, on the other hand, we know that there is a huge ocean economy that we can actually tap into. We can harness resources, and then we can also at the same time sustainably manage the oceans. So the situation doesn't need to be the same. We can actually improve. Now, if you see the ocean economy, currently it is about estimated to be about 2 to 3 trillion. And then there is actually, there are estimates that it could easily be 15 trillion. And then this can be attained sustainably. Now, this is from the high-level panel on sustainable ocean economy, which is actually, 18 countries, a consortium at the highest level, which actually has come up with a plan to, on ocean economy. Some of you are probably aware of this. So we can easily, whatever harvest that we are doing, food that we are getting from the ocean, it can easily enhance 6 times. Energy from the ocean, 40 times. And we can actually cut down on, carbon that is actually from the shipping, that can be cut down. We actually need to work on ocean restoration, tourism, and also there are several things, and several countries are working on their own ocean economy and blue economy initiatives and frameworks. And then there are also enablers actually to achieving a sustainable ocean economy. And some of those things are listed there, like, for example, we need to stop pollution, land-based pollution, and look at new financing opportunities actually to work on the oceans. Ocean accounting is a new thing that we really need to, take up and then assess. And all this requires data and science, and then lead to ocean planning. So taking all this into the background, we see, most of our countries, we work on several key ocean management domains. Some of these are, like, for example, listed there, coastal zone management. We talk about marine spatial planning these days. Then we need to manage our fisheries and aquaculture. Early warning systems is a big part of, how we can, we need to actually do, for example, because the oceanogenic hazards, starting from very short fuse hazards like tsunamis or longer term, climate change impacts that the ocean can bring to the coastal area. So we need to have warning systems for end-to-end oceanogenic hazards. Then, then other protocols like how do we manage our biodiversity, the, BBNJ and the LMEs and so on and so forth. And then, of course, very important thing is actually to manage the, ocean climate nexus, how actually ocean and the climate relate to each other, how they impact each other, and then how actually we need to generate that knowledge. So keeping all these in mind, now the Ocean Decade, UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which is actually a UN, approved by the UN General Assembly in 2019, and we are actually in that Ocean Decade, starting from 2021 until 2030, and then spearheaded by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of the UNESCO in collaboration with, all the partners. So we have a certain ocean that I've described so far. It has problems, and then we have actually, we aspire to achieve a certain ocean. Now, what is that ocean we want to achieve through the decade? I know there are certain outcomes which some are related to the ocean itself and some are related to the people. Like, for example, we need a clean ocean, healthy ocean, a productive ocean, predictive ocean, resilient ocean, and then inspiring and engaging ocean. How do we include civil society into the discourse on the oceans? How do we make them partners in actually, sustainable management of the oceans? So this is what we want to achieve through the Ocean Decade. And of course, there are several ocean challenges. I spoke about a few before: pollutants, ecosystem, food from the oceans, and so on and so forth. Ocean climate nexus, which are actually listed on the middle panel. Now, how do we tackle those problems? The IOC is actually coming up with several calls for, for a broad stakeholder engagement. These are actually done through, programs, large programs, projects, actions, which are actually being submitted, to be taken up as a part of the decade through, some are national programs, some are bilateral programs, some are international programs among several stakeholders. Now, this is how the ocean is actually, the Ocean Decade is functioning. Now, coming to things like, what are the coordination structures to achieve the Ocean Decade? So if you look at that, some of the two key things that you see here is actually the National Decade Coordination Centers, which is actually, at a national level, stakeholders get together and say that, okay, there is an NDCC that I have within the country, and then we actually, undertake to build programs or plans for us to jointly achieve some of the outcomes or, tackle some of the challenges that the Ocean Decade has actually put up. And then there are other coordination structures called Decade Collaborative Centers. Now, these Decade Collaborative Centers could be theme-based or they could be region-based, which can again try to, bring across a wide spectrum of stakeholders together and try to actually address some of those ocean actions actually. So as far as India is concerned, we have a National Decade Coordination Committee, which is actually led by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. The INCOIS, my agency, provides the sectorial support for this. Space Application Center is part of it. National Remote Sensing Agency is a part of it. So there are all the stakeholders which are working in the ocean, either remote sensing in situ or the service users. All of them are part of this National Decade Coordination Committee who come together and say that, okay, these are the programs that we have, and then this is how they could contribute towards the broader ocean decade. So if you see, as an example, some of the institutions on working across the ocean value chain. Now, ocean value chain, when we mean, we talk about within the country, within India, we have, for example, agencies which do ocean observations, agencies which do ocean data management, ocean modeling, ocean forecasting, and then finally services. We do operational oceanography, products that can help the users, day in and day out. And of course, we also have come up with products that can actually help, guide policy. So if you take an example of Ministry of Earth Sciences, like how we have seen colleagues from SAC present ISRO centers, we also have different centers within the Ministry of Earth Sciences dealing with the oceans. Like we deal with ocean observation, operational oceanography, INCOIS. There are agencies which deal with ocean technology, ocean, the polar research, coastal research, and so on and so forth. There are 10 such institutions. Dr. Prasad is going to talk about, atmospheric, research that the ministry does and so on. And we work very closely with, other ministries which work in the ocean. Like, for example, the ISRO helps builds and launches satellites that are actually used for ocean applications by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Like, for example, the OceanSat-3. We actually use the data from OceanSat series of satellites to produce products, actually, both short-term forecasting and also long-term climate kind of applications. There are several other institutes. Now, that's actually, something that all these institutes work together, pursue national mandate, but then at the same time, which is also useful for, connects to the ocean decade. Now, the Decade Collaborative Center for the Indian Ocean region, this is a regional DCC, is actually something INCOIS, our agency, has been identified as a Decade Collaborative Center for the Indian Ocean region. And then recently, the exchange of letters has been signed between the IOC and INCOIS. So we have actually had a kickoff meeting recently in August. We are trying to map different decade actions. Several stakeholders have submitted actions against the UN call. And then there are about more than 100 actions that are actually focusing on the Indian Ocean at different themes. Now, the DCC IOR is trying to actually prioritize how we can actually put all these actions together, build collaborations, and then try to make sure that everybody works together, try to actually facilitate actually resourcing of these actions that have been proposed and so on and so forth. So we are currently trying to map those actions. And then we also collaborate very closely with the other DCCs. Like, for example, there is a DCC for ocean prediction, which is led by Mercator Ocean in France. And then there is also a DCC for coastal resilience, which is led by University of Bologna in Italy. And then there is a DCC for Ocean Climate Nexus, which is by the First Institute of Oceanography. So all these DCCs work together and then try to bring in best practices across teams and then different regions, geographic regions. So there are about 11 DCCs. We work together with them. And then we also work with agencies like Bertrelli Foundation who have programs in the Indian Ocean region. So we are also working on setting up new actions against the new calls. For example, very recently, a new call has been launched, which actually now relates to coming up with actions for small island developing states in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. So we try to actually work on those calls, and then we also are working on an Ocean Decade 2030 vision, actually, which is going to be finalized and presented to the Barcelona conference, the Ocean Conference, Decade Conference, which is coming up in April. So we actually contribute to the coastal resilience part of this Ocean Decade 2030 vision. So there are several things that the DCC IOR actually has started doing. And then one thing that I would like to mention as a key event that is coming up is a regional workshop, similar to something like this, where we actually bring together experts from the entire region and outside to try to see what actions can be, new actions can be formulated or existing things, how they can be catalyzed. So we are trying to plan this sometime in February in Hyderabad. Now, this is my last slide, something that within India, which we have done, which we think will be very related to the ocean decade again, is actually, the G20 outcomes. India was, as most of you know, has been the president for the this year for the Indian G20. And there was a specific track on the oceans. And then one theme that has been taken up was, again, ocean economy, the blue economy or the ocean economy. And then, like I mentioned before, several countries have these ocean economy, programs, frameworks. But then, how we do and then how we plan is different. There is not a single definition, common definition of what is blue economy. Now, so what we try to do as part of G20 is to come up with certain kind of engagement discussions and try to come up with certain principles, underlying principles. When we talk about blue economy or ocean economy, these are some things that we need to address. So these 8 principles have been negotiated and then they are now out as, G20 documents. So these are called Chennai high-level principles for a sustainable and climate resilient blue/ocean economy. So they talk about prioritizing ocean health, that is reducing marine pollution, addressing and acknowledging links, ocean climate links, and then promoting social intergenerational equity and gender equality, and then marine spatial planning. And very important thing is to leverage science, technology, and innovation. How do we make really observations? How do you manage data and build science knowledge? And of course, to recognize and protect traditional knowledge and establish, implement blue economy based economy monitoring programs, ocean accounting and so on and so forth. And then of course, the last one, but not the least, is to strengthen international cooperation to tackle shared maritime challenges. So this is my last slide. So a lot of things have been, going on, pursued in the ocean decade. Of course, India has been contributing a lot to several themes and also, a lot of international collaboration. We try to, spin programs and then facilitate kind of cooperation and collaboration. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.